Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see how like these rookies are failing. I guess they do. Like I do see how these rookies are failing. These rookie quarterbacks. It's kind of like obvious to me because and I wrote these articles back last year for Dynasty Happy Hour, and then I wrote it again this year for, of course, Fantasy Intervention, and it kind of talked about like the system that these rookies are going to be fitting in, and what these rookies are going to be, what the outlook is like based off of the coaching, based off of the organization, based off everything. And, last year, Justin Herbert, after I wrote these articles, ended up being my number one quarterback. That was before the season started. And then it was Joe Burrow and Tua were very, very close. Meanwhile, Jordan Love, I said he could be successful, but, it's going to take time and it's going to be longer. I guess it's going to take longer to tell. But meanwhile, like when we look at this year, right, I was like, man, there are some really great quarterbacks landing in some really shitty situations. And then we have some quarterbacks who have a lot of unknown that are landing in some great situations, like when we talk about Lance, and Shanahan's system, when we talk about Mac Jones and the system they has with Bill Belichick and McDaniels. So I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, dude, Trevor Lawrence is going to struggle to succeed. Like he is going to struggle. It's going to happen because he has Urban Meyer as his coach, and Urban Meyer, he's not a great head coach. We saw when Urban Meyer left, what school was it? They ended up going on to win the bowl or the national championship. And then, we look at Matt Nagy and his coaching history and how he does not allow quarterback friendly offenses to succeed. Like, yeah, his play calling was great when he was underneath Andy Reid, but these guys are putting together, their plays together throughout the week. Like they're trying to decide together who's going to succeed and who's going to fail. And so for him to be the head coach and him heading that, it just hasn't been great. And we saw Nick Foles complain about the time it took to throw the ball last year. And now you have a terrible offensive line, rookie left tackle who's been hurt, and so you have Fields just behind this brutal system. And we're seeing it happen. Like we're seeing it come to fruition. Zach Wilson as well. We're seeing everything come to fruition that we talked about in the offseason. Is it something as to where you think that one of these rookies is going to overcome their situation, or is it going to be kind of telling as to what we've seen so far the first few weeks?
I think they will. And the expectations on them were so incredibly high. We had so many quarterbacks drafted in the top 15 this year, and everyone just thought that they were going to come out of the gate and learn the system. And, the Jets, especially losing Mekhi Becton,
That's huge.
Wilson did win his first game and he put up great numbers. But then as soon as Becton went down, that whole offensive line has just crumbled. And I think it's more a circumstance of their situation than it is an indictment on their talent.
No, I mean, it definitely is 100%. And it's such a hot topic right now. I just love talking about it. I think it's something as to where we could see some of these quarterbacks, break out like the Trey Lance if Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. And all of a sudden that could be the MVP candidate. And we're, 5-6 games into the season. So, I mean, there's nobody that's really separated themselves so far outside of maybe a couple wide receivers like we talked about with Rondell Moore, who pretty much did nothing last week.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody for you that's, leading the rookie of the year conversation?
Oh,
I mean, we saw Najee Harris get 20 targets?
Yeah,
20 targets?
I think, it has to be Najee. I thought at first, Devontae Smith came out week 1 and looked great, put up 16 fantasy points. And then this week he couldn't even get the 6.5 to help win me my match. So it's like, there's no consistency anywhere. And even Najee, just the first 2 weeks looked bad behind that line.
Yeah, it is. That offensive line, that was expected to happen. This offensive line is brutal. I mean, they have fourth, fifth round picks on their offensive line. But that's not what we're here for today. We're here to talk the waiver wire. Are you ready to get started on the show?
Let's go.
Let's go. And by the way, everybody that has questions in the chat, we will get to them right off the bat as soon as we come in with our intro. Where are we?
This is Fantasy Intervention. intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
Britt, I think it's about time. I think we need to get an intro with your name in there as well, because you are here with me on Tuesdays for our Waiver Wire show. What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. We have another show coming at you. This is Britt and I's, third week, I believe? Third week for the Waiver Wires. So we go through, we talk about, hey, you're an idiot for spending this much money or this much FAAB on a player. Meanwhile, you're an idiot for not picking this player up. And, it's been an adventure so far. I mean, week 3, we hit on the head. Week 2 was a little bit questionable, but I think, week 2 was definitely brutal for everybody as a whole. I'm excited. I'm very, very excited for this week, because we have a lot of ones that are out there where it's like, hey, why the hell are you even talking about this player? Like, why is this player getting mentioned? Oh man, when we talk about Westbrook, I don't want to give away too much, but we have a lot of players where it's like, why the hell are you talking about this guy? Meanwhile, why aren't you talking about this player more? This player needs to be rostered. This player needs to be out there, or this player should not be out there, I should say. So welcome on in, everybody. I'm joined by my co-host at Britt_Flynn. Once again, that's at Britt_Flynn over there on Twitter. She does a lot of different things around the podcast world and around the Twitterverse. Britt, you want to let everybody know where to find you before we get started?
You can find me at Fighting Chance Fantasy. I do a weekly DFS value article every week for them. I put out occasional articles on there, and then I also do a Sunday morning start-sit show called The Calm Before the Storm with Kevin Tompkins and Gary Haddow.
I love that. And I've actually tuned into a couple episodes. They're great. Make sure you guys go check that out over there at Fighting Chance Fantasy. But let's go ahead and get started with the show, because we have a lot to talk about. There is a lot. Before we end up going into our actual show sheet, Chris was in here in the chat as soon as we went live. He's like, I need answers. So we're going to go ahead and answer this for Chris, and then we'll get started on our show. Meanwhile, we do have questions from Cameron, from Robert, from Hunter. I mean, the list goes on and on, which we will get to, and we just got started. We're just getting started. So if you have any questions, starter sit, anything outside of, not starter sit, waiver wire questions outside, do not ask the starter sit questions, because we cannot get to those yet. Those are for tomorrow night on Wednesday. But if you guys have any waiver wire questions, whether you should drop player, whether you should pick them up, please leave them in the chat, and we will make sure we get to that. So we're going to start out first with Chris's question. Do I drop either Shenault or Rager for either Kirk, Emmanuel Sanders, Hunter Renfrow in PPR? So this one's a little bit tough, right? Because Hunter Renfrow, he had a week. Emmanuel Sanders, which we will talk about, very, very shortly, I had a hell of a week. Meanwhile, Christian Kirk, he's on or off. You don't really know when to start Kirk, though. But with Hunter Renfrow, I believe he has a tougher matchup coming up over there in the slot. So I'm fading Hunter Renfrow this week in hopes that somebody's going to pick him up, waste FAAB, and then realize he does nothing, and then goes on to drop him the following week. Meanwhile, Kirk, like I said, I just don't know when I can start him. So I have to leave Kirk on waivers. I mean, we can talk about him here in a little bit once again to go into more. But Rager has that upside. Shenault has the volume that you need. The only one that I would be considering here is Emmanuel Sanders, and we'll go into why here in a minute. Where are you feeling? How are you feeling about this, Britt?
Yeah, Kirk's also, not only is he competing for a ton of the targets, because they're just a stable of great wide receivers in Arizona. Their upcoming schedule is at the Rams versus San Fran, then at Cleveland, and then they get Houston. But the 2 out of the 4 of the next few weeks are really kind of brutal.
Yeah, and when you sit there, this is what we call roster bombs, right? This is where you let your league mates pick up a player that they're going to throw in their starting lineup, but they might have a tough matchup or something along those lines, and they could completely destroy your opponent's lineup. So there are certain situations where I want to block players or block my league mates from getting certain players. Meanwhile, there are players that I want to leave out there on purpose, where I hope that the person I'm playing against will pick them up and play them. Perfect example could have been Davis Mills this past week, where it's like, oh, wait, the guy that I was playing had Tyrod Taylor. Do I go pick up Davis Mills, keep him from playing? No, I want to leave him out there. I want that person to pick it up, and I want it to implode their entire lineup. So this is something where Kirk and Hunter Renfrow can carry that, but Emmanuel Sanders will be up there. Let's go ahead and get into the show sheet, and then we'll get to a few more questions from Cameron and Robert here in a minute. And Hunter, I saw you in there as well. But let's go ahead and start out with the quarterback situation, because some people stream quarterbacks. It's something that I do on a daily basis, at least before I had 28 leagues that I'm in. I was streaming quarterbacks on a daily basis, I should say, or weekly basis. And some of these people do have 2 quarterback leagues. Meanwhile, maybe you had a quarterback get hurt, such as Tyrod Taylor, or maybe you rostered a quarterback on the back end of your rosters that didn't perform, or you're nervous about, like Taylor Heinicke. So let's go ahead with our first one in Sam Darnold, right? He's rostered in 13.1% of ESPN leagues. He's averaging 25.7 points per game. Big shout out to Britt for pulling these stats, of course, because I did not have time today. Already has 888 yards, 3 passing touchdowns on the season, and always has that rushing upside. Britt, how are you feeling about Sam Darnold? What's going on? Talk to me.
Well, I promise I'm not being a homer, but next week he does have to play Dallas. So I might scoop him up just to hold on to, because the week after he plays Dallas, he has Philly and Minnesota both at home, and then the Giants and the Falcons. So aside from that Cowboys matchup, and we still don't know, we talked about this last night, is the Cowboys defense really that good, or is Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia just really that bad? We don't know yet, but I would be hesitant about starting him. But so far this year, I mean, he's the 13th ranked quarterback. And if you're in a deep league, even a 12-team league, if you're in a 2 quarterback league, for sure, go scoop him up.
Yeah, I actually really like Darnold. And up against Dallas, they're going to have to pass. And Sam Darnold could end up having a little bit of a rough week, but they've got Chuba Hubbard over there, which I do think they're going to run a little bit more often. We'll talk about Chuba Hubbard here in a second. But if Chuba Hubbard isn't as efficient as CMC, maybe he's not as efficient as CMC. Let's just say that he's not. He could be, but let's just say that he's not as efficient as CMC. No, he's not, guys. I'm just kidding. But no, he's not. Maybe Sam Darnold is going to have to pass more. Now, I know that CMC did give Sam Darnold somewhat of a floor to an extent, getting 50, 60, 70 plus yards a game when it came to Sam Darnold's, passing floor. Meanwhile, you have DJ Moore, you've got Terrace Marshall, you have Robbie Anderson. But in all reality, when we break it down, right, Sam Darnold might have to pass downfield more often. He might have to take more shots, and he could be left in more 3rd and long situations. Now, this does hurt his overall volume, because he's probably not going to convert on nearly as many as what he did with CMC in the game. However, if he can get us chunk yardage, something that we are not used to seeing as much from Sam Darnold, I think that Sam Darnold could still be a startable option, which is why I really like him. Sam Darnold's looking like a whole different quarterback. He's looking like the former 1st-round pick that he should have been. And honestly, I think that Sam Darnold is one of my favorite quarterback pickups on the week when it comes to some of those deeper leagues. Have any disagreement there, or you want to move on to the next person?
No, I completely agree.
All right, so let's go ahead and look at Taylor Heinicke, who I just talked about, making you a little nervous after throwing, 2 interceptions for the Bills. He still threw, I believe, 2 touchdown passes and ran 1 in as well. Rostered in 5% of leagues, averaging 22.7 fantasy points per game. Look at the schedule. The schedule can be kind of nasty, right? Like in a good way. We have the Atlanta Falcons, who easy to pass against. We have the Saints, who you cannot run against. We have the Chiefs, who you're going to have to pass against, along with Green Bay after that. And then you have Denver, which makes me nervous because you can't really pass up against that team. So with that being said, is this something as to where if you're in a 12-team league with 1 quarterback, is there any chance you're going to be running out Taylor Heinicke, let's just say, over Sam Darnold?
I don't think I would play him over Sam Darnold, but Washington's defense is kind of a shell of itself. So they can't rely on the defense to keep them in the games like they did last season. Yeah. He's going to have to pass. He's going to have to run. And Curtis Samuel should be coming back shortly. I think he either returned to practice or they just took him off IR. So even if it's not this week, it could be next week. And he'll have one of his gadget weapons back. So
yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a phenomenal point, because now you're adding another weapon to this offense in the passing game, which is what they need right now, because you're right. That defense is a giant shell of itself. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a shadow, essentially. So it's been bad. Washington's been bad. We actually have our Washington football team show coming up next. You guys can find us over there on YouTube, or if you're on Twitter, youtube.com/fantasy intervention. You can also find us over there on Twitter at @joinourcircle_. We have our Washington football team show coming up next if you guys want to tune in. But let's go ahead for Hennick. You're right. I'm not going to be throwing a ton of FAAB at him. I honestly don't think I might throw $1. I might throw $1 at him. I think that he should be there after waivers clear. I think people are a little bit too nervous. Meanwhile, there are plenty of options at the quarterback position. So when it comes to throwing waiver wire dollars at him, I'm going to go ahead and leave him there and just hope that I can get him after waivers clear. One person that I don't think you're going to be able to get if you have the waiver wire situation is Kirk Cousins. He's rostered already in 42.5% of the ESPN leagues, which is already up there. And I mean, for the leagues that are competitive, if you guys had waivers clear after Monday night, like I've heard some actually do now, which is kind of bizarre to me, but if you do, Kirk Cousins is actually probably rostered if that was the case. He's averaging 29.9 points per game. And we talked about him last week. He was my breakout player. He was going to be my stud. It was him and Matt Stafford. And he did not disappoint. He absolutely smashed faces. Without Dalvin Cook, he normally does. What was he like? Had over 700 yards, I believe, or right around 700 yards, along with 6 touchdowns in the 2 games that Dalvin Cook missed last year. We saw it happen again this past week, and I absolutely loved it. Although Alexander Madison still performed well, is Kirk Cousins going to be up there for you for the waiver wires? Are you passing on him? Are you trying to grab him? What are your thoughts?
I'm really surprised that he hasn't thrown any interceptions yet this season. So far, he has an 8-0 touchdown interception ratio so far. And if you know Kirk, I mean, he's known for playing fast and loose with the ball sometimes. So that's kind of shocked me. But he's the 5th overall fantasy quarterback. He ranks 4th in completion percentage and quarterback ratings. And I mean, he's got weapons. And Minnesota's not allowing nearly as many sacks on that line as they have in the past either. So I'm in on Kirk. I have to take my L because I was wrong.
Yeah, no, I love Kirk Cousins. I think that he is somebody that we can, absolutely hop in the back of right now. This offense is just becoming more and more efficient. KJ Osborne, he's still adding to the offense, although he wasn't as dynamic. But, I mean, he still is a piece that can actually help Kirk Cousins in the long run. We have Adam Thielen, who's still being a touchdown monster to an extent. Justin Jefferson should have 3 touchdowns, I believe, on the year. Ended up, having one that was arguably, incomplete without a pass interference. But yeah, so I'm sitting there. I'm loving Kirk Cousins' situation moving forward. I think he's somebody that you must roster. Now, we do have Chris in the chat. He wants to know about a quarterback situation. We got Cameron and Robert after this. But does he drop Daniel Jones for Sam Darnold? Because we just talked about this, and this is a great comparison right here. I absolutely love Sam Darnold. I do not like Daniel Jones. I know that Daniel Jones has a better upside when it comes to rushing ability. They're using him. They're using the RPO right now to get Daniel Jones outside the pocket. We saw that dynamically with Washington. They still used it to an extent this past week. 2 weeks ago. I'm sitting there, and I'm still going to be taking Sam Darnold, who I think is slightly more efficient. Way more efficient with a slightly lower rushing upside. How are you feeling about Sam Darnold versus Daniel Jones?
Yeah, and Darnold just still has so many more weapons, even with CMC out. We don't know how long Sterling Shepard's going to be out. We haven't seen Galladay really be healthy. Evan Ingram just drops so often. So I think if you're chasing the upside, and I don't have their overall schedule pulled up, but it seems like, just based on win-loss percentage, Carolina is actually winning these games, and everyone thought that they were going to be bad. Everyone knew the Giants were going to be bad, and they've just kind of proven themselves to be. So, yeah, I'm going Darnold. Yeah,
I think Darnold is the right answer. The Giants do have somewhat of a decent schedule. They have the Saints, who we brought up earlier, and the Cowboys. But, both these teams still have very good defenses. Then we have the Rams, who are dominant. We have the Panthers, who are dominant. I'm fading Daniel Jones really hard right now, and I'm definitely would drop him for Sam Darnold, not just for this week, but for the upcoming weeks as well. Now, Cameron has a question. Moving on to the wide receiver position. Are we thinking that Van Jefferson should be worth a pickup? Because Van Jefferson, for me, is something that I've been fading throughout all of 2020. I wasn't into. Going into 2021, I wasn't into. They have too many options over there. Matt Stafford is firing on all cylinders right now, and Van Jefferson is still giving us very mediocre outputs. Like there would have to be an injury to one of these players, especially Cooper Kupp, like in particular, to actually see the volume. I mean, Robert Woods is getting the volume, so maybe an injury to him, but Cooper Kupp especially. Is Van Jefferson somebody that you think should be on rosters right now, or are you fading, Van Jefferson and just waiting till somebody possibly gets hurt?
Yeah, I'm fading him for now. Deshaun Jackson showed us a lot last week.
Jackson?
I think
I'm just kidding.
I think faster than my mouth talks.
I like
Deshaun Jackson showed us last week that he was still looked good. He was still capable of showing out and balling. So unless he goes down or one of the other two that you mentioned go down, I just can't really waste a bench spot with Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how volatile Christian Kirk can be, right? Christian Kirk is extremely volatile. We never know when to start him. I mean, we saw Van Jefferson get a 92% snap share last week, and he went 1 for 3. Mm-hmm. Like that was nothing. Like on his, when it came to his volume and his receptions and his targets, I can't buy into that. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't need to do it. So I'm going to actually fade that one right there. I don't even see Van Jefferson with a rushing touchdown. Maybe I'm incorrect on that. I'm only seeing 8.2 fantasy points from 4 receptions on 42 yards, but maybe I missed on something over there. I'll check it out here when I have some dead time, unless you want to check it out, Britt, while we're about to answer this next question. So we have Robert coming into the chat. He's asking, is Renfrow or Tim Patrick worth a waiver claim? How much should I bid on Chuba Hubbard? Not sure it's worth the high bid because CMC is probably back in a couple weeks. What are your thoughts? Thanks for all the advice. So we're actually going to talk about Chuba Hubbard here in a second. Hunter Renfrow and Tim Patrick, we talked about, last week with Hunter Renfrow, with a tough matchup, I'm fading Hunter Renfrow for one more week. Tim Patrick should have already been picked up on the back end of your rosters if you need a player. If he's still out there, I'm going to put at least a small bid on him, but we're kind of seeing how this offense is operating, and it's pretty much whoever's open. Teddy Bridgewater is making great plays. He's one of the highest rated QBRs, or he has one of the highest QBR ratings. So I'm sitting and looking at Tim Patrick as somebody that should have been added, but it's going to be something as to where I have to check the matchups before I decide to play, a Tim Patrick type player. Have you discovered anything on Van Jefferson?
So his only touchdown on the year was in week 1 against Chicago.
Was that a rushing touchdown?
It wasn't a rush.
Okay, so Cameron. Wait, where did I see rushing touchdown? Sorry. Dude with the Rams. Oh, I completely misread this question. You're talking about Deshaun Jackson, who had the touchdown. My bad. Yeah, Deshaun Jackson is the deep threat, man. No, but like I said, with Van Jefferson, it's just going to be too spotty. My bad. Misread your question. Let's go ahead and move on to one more question from Hunter, and then we're going to go ahead and hop into these running backs. Do I start Jacobs or Gordon? Got Pittman in the flex. All right, so Josh Jacobs, I think, is going to be out this week again. I think they came out and said, and it's actually going to be one of the first topics that we cover. Gruden said that that Peyton Barber is his guy, and that he should be the starter next week, or he should at least see significant carries last week. I think Josh Jacobs is out, so I would start Gordon if Josh Jacobs is out. Of course, you want all your players in your starting roster actually playing in the game. So, Britt, do you have an objection to that?
No, I heard that he could come back. I heard that he could come back possibly, but I mean, Jacobs feels like he's always hurt. Yeah, and even you don't want him to rush back, so I wouldn't count on that.
Oh man, with Jacobs, it's so spotty with him, and he plays through injuries, so I wouldn't doubt it. But this is such a sexy matchup if he does play. It's so sexy. The Chargers have allowed 170 yards per game and a touchdown to the running back position, whether that's through receptions or on the ground.
It's nuts.
I love this matchup. And what is it? Let's see. Yeah, John Gruden is hopeful Josh Jacobs will be back on the grass this week. But didn't he come out and say the exact – God, you never know with these coaches, man. John Gruden's the worst. He is literally, like we talked about, the exact opposite of Bill Belichick when it comes to, actually saying what he's going to do and then doing something opposite and then coming out great versus saying what he's going to do and coming out horribly. And so, like, it's like, oh my God, John Gruden, you're going to give me an aneurysm when it comes to figuring out what the hell you're doing. So let's go ahead and start this out. Let's start it out with Josh Jacobs. Are you spending FAAB on him? Because guess what? He might not play. I'm sorry, not on Josh Jacobs. On, of course, Peyton Barber.
I think I would go spend a little bit of FAAB on Peyton Barber. Not a ton. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10%. But it does seem like Gruden's really favoring Barber over Kenyon Drake. He had 71% of the offensive snaps last week, but he only had 8 carries.
Ooh.
Like, no, like
hyper efficient though. Hyper efficient.
Yeah, but only 8 carries. Like, Gruden doesn't like him for some unknown reason. He just doesn't like him. The only problem is if and when Jacobs comes back, and this game next week is a Monday night game. So if you do decide to start Jacobs, make sure that you have some kind of backup. Or if you have Jacobs, go spend your FAAB for a handcuff so that you have that option.
Yeah, because Kenyon Drake's not the guy. By the way, I was kidding when I said hyper efficient. He had I think it was like 8 carries for 20 yards or something.
Oh no, they
like
were
that.
bad.
It was bad. So obviously his efficiency is lacking, but it's kind of funny because we feel like he likes Kenyon Drake more than he likes Josh Jacobs, which is the weirdest part. But he likes Peyton Barber more than any of them. So, I'm leaning towards giving anywhere from an 8 to 12% FAAB, depending how much you have left. If you're somebody that went blue $50, early and you're down to 100, then I'm on the 8% side. If you're somebody that, actually has a good chunk left, you haven't wasted your money, I can see you spending 12% of your FAAB because of this matchup this week. If you have a tougher matchup, you don't have the running backs, you're in a bad situation, man, you got your ass in the grass. Like, maybe you just need a Hail Mary play. Like, I'm telling you, like, Peyton Barber just knows what he's doing. Imagine if Peyton Barber was actually a good athlete. Like, imagine if he was actually talented, because his vision is elite, right? His ability to understand where to hit defenders is elite. His ability to understand when to hit offenders versus, moving past them is elite. He's just not athletic. And it's so sad. It's almost like the Frank Gore corollary, but Frank Gore was actually good once upon a time. For anybody that might be under the age of 30. Frank Gore actually used to be good. And so we sit there and we look at Peyton Barber, and I feel like he's now where Frank Gore was after Frank Gore played in the league for like 10 years. And we see Peyton Barber, who's only played in the league for 6-7 years or something like that, actually, at the same level that Frank Gore was at, where he can still get you fantasy points. He can still be a reliable flex option. And if you need that player, you need that dude, I think that Peyton Barber is worth spending that if you have the FAAB. But don't go out there and just blow your FAAB for no reason, because guess what? He might not play this week, or he might not be the starting running back this week, but at least you have the Josh Jacobs handcuff if you do have Josh Jacobs already. Now, my favorite waiver wire target of the week, which I couldn't believe, I left off the initial sheet, and I'm like, oh, Britt, I forgot something. I forgot my favorite player on this entire waiver wire. It's Marlon Mack. It's Marlon fucking Mack. Like, Marlon Mack is the epitome of a good running back, not a great running back, a good running back that doesn't see the opportunity. Like the Royce Freeman. I'm just kidding. I know he's better than Royce Freeman, but he's a player that just needs to see opportunity. I mean, he was tops in juke rate. He was tops in evaded tackles when he was playing throughout 2019. He started out 2020 great before he got hurt on like his 5th play of the game. Marlon Mack is somebody that I had slated going to the Atlanta Falcons this past year. And I was looking forward to it so much. It was either going to be them or the Dolphins. I wanted him to do the Falcons so that he could have the workload to himself. Meanwhile, he ends up getting re-signed for a year. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I just wanted to throw him out a window, because for him to think that he could beat out Jonathan Taylor on one aspect and Naeem Heinz on the other just didn't make any sense to me. It's like, dude, go somewhere where you can actually be valued and used, get that money the following year. So Marlon Mack comes in, ends up falling behind. Both players, because obviously he's dealing with injury and whatnot, and recovery. And now he's like, hey, I've not even seen the field. Like, I need to see the field. So they end up working something out as where, like, hey, you can go seek a trade. And I think that's what the Colts wanted the entire time. The Colts knew they weren't going to use him. Like, where did the Colts think that he would actually fit in? Sure, he could end up being a backup, but they have Jordan Wilkins. He's fine. Like he plays special teams. I don't think Marlon Mack does. So now they're allowing Marlon Mack to go seek a trade. Well, what teams do we have listed where you could go seek a trade from? We have the Rams, which you brought up, right?
Yep. The 49ers, obviously, with their injury problems. And then Atlanta and Miami still aren't looking that good.
They're not looking, but they might be out there. I mean, I know that Cordell Patterson is playing great, right? He played 88% of the snaps as a running back this past week. So he has converted over to running back completely, which we already expected. But he can't, like, he's not a between the tackles type runner. He had a handful of carries for almost no yards. Like, he's not that dude. However, he is great in the passing game. Meanwhile, Marlon Mack, he's still good in the passing game, by the way. He's not great, but he's good in the passing game. But he's between the tackles type runner. He's very quick. He's very agile. He reminds me a little bit of like a poor man's Le'Veon Bell, where he can find the holes and he can get through them. And that's what the Atlanta Falcons need. Like, they need that type of running back right now. And Mike Davis is obviously not the answer. Mike Davis might get phased out of this offense entirely. Like, show me something new, you know? So I'm thinking that Marlon Mack could actually be slated to go to the Falcons. Is there anybody else that might cross your mind?
Ooh. Let's see. I'm just trying to think about this, honestly, but it seems like everyone pretty much has their running back situation locked up, maybe except for the Dolphins. But I mean, they did bring in Malcolm Brown, so I'm not sure how much they're actually.
He's trash, Britt. He's trash.
Well, yeah, I'm just not sure if they're ready to give up on him already in the season. But maybe. I mean, you definitely have in Marlon Mack what you don't have with him. You have a first string starter last year, albeit for one game. But yeah, I don't really know how he looks after the Achilles injury. I'm kind of skeptical on things like that because it is hard to make cuts coming off this recent of an injury. But if he looks as good as we've heard, then yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't take a chance on him.
All right. So yeah, and I can understand that. I mean, God forbid he lands with the Jets, because that's pretty much like our worst nightmare at this point. But I'm picking up Marlon Mack, and I'm actually throwing a decent amount of FAAB on him. I'm actually going to be throwing probably close to 15%, because now you have a starting caliber running back in an offense that will need him. You know, I'm hoping he doesn't get to the 49ers, because I don't want him to get hurt. We all know what happens. We don't want an Achilles injured, running back or former injured running back going to the 49ers. You know, that's just a recipe for disaster. And then the Dolphins, sure, that could work out. I'm down for it, but it's a little bit predictable. Meanwhile, Jacoby Brissett doesn't pass the running back. I'm really, really liking the Atlanta Falcons. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm willing to put down 15%. Are you willing to put a FAAB down on Marlon Mack, or are you just going to let him ride, see what happens?
I'm more of the cautious type, so I think I'm going to let him ride until I see where his ending spot goes or ends up, because like you said, what if he does go to the Jets or just some random team? Like,
God, that sounds so much more gross when you said it in my ears than when I said it out loud. Like, I have headphones on, so maybe I can't hear myself talk, and I just ramble on. So it probably didn't sound as gross for me, but that sounded so gross when you just said Marlon Mack can go to the Jets. Oh,
it would hurt. It would hurt so bad.
The pain that you bring me on the show. All right. So let's go ahead and let's jump on to Chuba Hubbard, because that's obviously a big question in the chat right now. And we will get to some more of these questions here very, very soon. But let's discuss Chuba Hubbard, because Chuba Hubbard is somebody that everybody's on. And this is somebody that I've been shouting from the rooftops, been shouting from the mountaintops. I've been yelling in people's ears at bars to pick up. Like, have you ever seen that meme with the chick? Like, she's in like a red dress and she's in the middle of a club, and there's like a military guy that's like yelling in her ear something, and she just looks like she's bored and like completely zoned out. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Have you ever seen? Okay. That's me to everybody, not just chicks, to everybody, telling them to go pick up Chuba Hubbard as their backup running back. You know, we see Christian McCaffrey and his workload, and we've seen what happens with running backs. You know, they take on these 300 to 400 touch seasons, and they slowly deal with, lingering injuries. And it happens. Like, it's like a car. You drive a car super hard, unless, you have you get a little bit of luck. You're going to end up needing new tires. You're going to end up needing, different situations. I'm not a car guy, so I can't go into this. You're going to need an oil change. I know what an oil change is. So essentially, like, we see Christian McCaffrey and how great he is and how much the Panthers want to use him because of how great he is. But you almost had an indication that he was going to break down at some point. So roster and Chuba Hubbard isn't sitting there and saying like, hey, you're taking a victory lap off of injuries. You're being precautious because guess what he breaks down? Same thing with Alexander Madison, right? And what we've seen with Dalvin Cook in the recent history. Dalvin Cook has a tendency to break down, although he has been a lot more reliable over the past 2 seasons. He still ends up dealing with these lingering issues, which opens up the door for opportunity. So Chuba Hubbard should have already been on rosters. He's literally rostered in 80% of my leagues by me, I think, in most of them. But Chuba Hubbard, for you, is this somebody that you're going to lay FAAB down on? Because Christian McCaffrey's dealing with a hamstring injury. And I listened to Edwin Porras' show earlier, who, by the way, is the best injury doctor on all Facebook. You guys need to go check him out. It's Edwin Porras over there on Twitter. The dude is brilliant. He's a genius, but he actually compiles data. And the average running back time that they missed from injury in a hamstring is 17 days. And I believe that's what he said. And then they actually have, 17 days before the next game, before their following game. So Christian McCaffrey actually has time to recover. Meanwhile, Chuba Hubbard might only get the primary workload for 1 week. So how are you feeling about Christian McCaffrey? How are you feeling about Chuba Hubbard? What's going on in your mind?
Well, I'm okay putting down 10 to 15% of FAAB as a non-Christian McCaffrey, or with Christian McCaffrey not on my team. I'm willing to put 30-ish down if I do have Christian McCaffrey, just because I think that he is going to suffer another injury. They did a piece on it before the game on Thursday, and it was such an ironic thing. They were talking about, the coaches said that he wants to manage my workload so that I don't get hurt again. And then this happened, a couple quarters into it. So I think he does run the risk of getting injured again this season, even if he does come back in a week or two. So grab Chuba. And maybe they'll learn their lesson and not run McCaffrey into the dirt.
So I don't remember what he called it because I'm not a doctor, right? If you are a doctor, get at me because we need an injury specialist to come on our shows on Tuesday nights to talk to us and let us know if we're dumb or not. But I did listen to Edward's podcast, and he's sitting there and he was talking about how the recurring rate of a hamstring injury is 28%. However, I want to say it was like 18% or 20% of those happen the first week when they come back. So if it doesn't happen the first week, it's very, very small percentage that could actually happen in weeks occurring after that. So if you get if you get Chuba Hubbard this week, right, he will probably be cheaper than what you would get him at in 2 weeks from now. Because if he injures his hamstring, the average return rate or time expectancy for return rate is something like 4 or 5 weeks after that, something along those lines, because teams are more cautious. It takes time for it to heal if you re-injure it even worse. So I'm actually down to pick up Chuba Hubbard. I've already had him, but you should have already had him on your rosters anyways. And he has independent value from week to week. I think he's going to have even more independent value now with even a stronger handcuff, value as a whole. So I'm actually willing to put down 20% on Chuba Hubbard. He has that explosive upside, which you want in a running back. He has a breakaway speed. He has breakaway ability. I don't care what his 40 times said. He was a track athlete who was training for the Olympics. He was not as slow as what his 40 times said. I think that he might have been running on a treadmill or something like that for his 40 time. Like, we didn't see it, but I want to say that he was running on a treadmill for his 40 time, where he still had to run 40 yards, but obviously it was going against him the entire time. And that's why he ran a slower 40 time. I'm all about Chuba Hubbard this upcoming, for this upcoming waiver wire. Go pick him up. 20% is my recommended amount, maybe 18% if you're a little bit short on FAAB. Zach Moss, though. Zach Moss. He's making a statement right now. Do you want to go ahead and let me know what the roster percentage is?
It's
Zach Moss.
61.5%.
It was not 61.5% when I actually typed his name out.
No, people have been scooping him up.
Yeah. So you better believe that the people are in on this. But why are people in on this, Britt?
Well, in week 1, everyone was talking about how he's droppable because he was a, quote, healthy scratch. We found out today that he actually wasn't a healthy scratch, that there was an injury, some kind to do with the toe, I think, which is a whole other can of worms about why that wasn't reported on an injury report. But in the past 2 weeks, he's seen, I think, a 64-36 split of touches between him and Singletary. He's also getting a ton of red zone work, and he's being really efficient. Last week he had 16 touches for 91 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, no, and it's real. Like, they're protecting Zach Moss right now. I mean, I'm sorry, they're protecting Josh Allen right now. Josh Allen was somebody that was running the ball constantly. Every time that he saw the end zone, he would run for it, and that's what they let him. But they're not letting him do it this year. We are seeing an uptick in usage from Zach Moss every single week, the healthier that he gets. And, I mean, sitting there and looking at his red zone rushes inside the 20-yard line, last season he was at 29. This season, he's already at 8. So if we sit there and we look at that projected, because he's only played in 1.5 games. He had 18 snaps in week 2. He had 42 snaps in week 3. So like 1.5 games out of the 3 games, he could absolutely crush his red zone rushes from last year. And with his size and with his actual player profile, like, we could actually see him smashing faces and fantasy values. And I'm not even a Zach Moss guy. I don't even like Zach Moss that much. He's okay. Like, he's always been average to me. But I'm hopping on Zach Moss right now. And if he's on your waivers, I think you should go out and try to acquire Zach Moss. Are you on the Zach Moss train, Britt?
I am definitely. I actually thought about sending out a trade offer in my Big Bunny League, but his upcoming schedule, the next 3 games, at home against Houston, at Kansas City, and at Tennessee. I mean, paper thin defenses.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that's a great
incredible
schedule.
God, we're going to have to move on before I get way too turned on for this. Like, that is sexy as hell. I love that. I absolutely love it. As for our next guy, Cordell Patterson, he does not go on here because we already told you last week we were both on Cordell Patterson. Y'all didn't want to listen. But I was sitting there telling you guys the Giants' front 7 is actually very good, and they're great at stopping the run. Meanwhile, you can pass all over them. And Cordell Patterson did just that and completely dominated. We have one more running back before you get back to these questions. So let's go ahead and cover that. Jerry Nichols. He's rostered 2.3% of ESPN leagues. And you want to actually take this one? Because it looks like you did some great notes on this.
Yeah. Everyone kind of got really excited when he caught that touchdown pass. And side note, thank God, because otherwise I would have been ruined by Tannehill again. But it's really a run-heavy offense. Derrick Henry, I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but the guy's good. His workload is good, and he's not going to give away much, if any, of his carries. So McNichols really isn't going to deliver anything for your team, except in the event that Derrick Henry gets hurt. But I'm not counting on that anytime soon. Knock on wood.
Do you think they'll have to pass against the Jets? The Titans, that is. Do you think they'll have to pass very often up against the Jets?
No.
Do you think they'll have to pass very often up against the Jacksonville Jaguars?
No.
Okay, so why are you picking up a pass-catching running back?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why is he such a hot target? He's going to end up getting dropped, maybe not this upcoming week, but the following week. And then guess what? You can pick him up after that because he has a sexy schedule after that. But even so, Derrick Henry is still involved in the passing game, which even more so blows my mind. Now, what I didn't know up until Ian Hartitz sent me over his charts and everything was that Jerry McNichols actually played, I think, more third down snaps than Derrick Henry last season. This year, that's not going to be the case. And like we talked about, Derrick Henry is involved in the passing game this year, which is so much more exciting.
Which is so unfair to every opposing defense. Like,
It
he's
is.
already a bulldozer. Now you're going to
is.
let him catch balls too.
And what's funny is, like, the Seahawks, right? Like, first off, Alexander Madison has some sort of kryptonite when he goes up against the Seahawks. I don't know what it is. But outside of him, like, you can't run on the Seahawks. Meanwhile, Derrick Henry, of course, can run on anybody, but Derrick Henry really succeeded and gotten an extra massive fantasy boost in the receiving game. So it's kind of funny to sit there and see, like, everybody sit there and touts Derrick Henry and how the Seahawks are a bad run defense. I mean, they held Alexander Madison to, I believe it was right around 3 to 4 yards carry or so. Meanwhile, Derrick Henry, It was about average. It's not like he did anything crazy except for in the passing game where he actually succeeded at a outstanding level. He had 55 yards and X amount of receptions. So let's go ahead and answer some of these questions. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bring up one more person. One more person, Britt. Am I talking too much?
No.
Should we go into these questions or should we talk about this one person that I brought up?
Let's talk about the one last person and then let's go to questions.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I don't want to bore everybody, but Travis Homer to me could be sexy. And I love Chris Carson for this matchup. I do. But Travis Homer is the pass catching back in this offense. Chris Carson's seen his targets. He's still doing well with his targets. He's all right. It's not bad. But Travis Homer is the pass catching back in this offense, and he's rostered in a very limited amount of leagues. The 49ers are 23rd in dose score so far this season. They did play some great pass catching running backs when you talk about Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. But either way, like he's logged the snaps. You actually put in the notes, he logged 16 offensive snaps up against Minnesota. Now, that's not anything to call home about, right? That's not great. But as the pass catching third down, up against the 49ers team that has done okay up against the running backs in the middle, when they try and run up the middle, they've done okay. I think that Travis Homer could be a deep league pickup where you could pick up this player, you could throw him on the back end of your roster. And I mean, even the Scott Fishbowl seems enticing, considering the fact that he can actually catch passes and he can do cool things with these passes. And if you haven't seen him catch a ball, go to the offseason workouts for 2020 and just watch him snag a ball straight out of the air that was a 6-yard pass from Russell Wilson. And you'll understand what I'm talking about. This guy's a wide receiver playing running back, and he's just getting accustomed to the role that he has. Travis Homer is a stash, especially for dynasty leagues. However, keep him in mind, and if he starts to have blow-up weeks and you guys see him have blow-up weeks, don't be hesitant to roster him in the future. He is a future stash for me. All right, let's answer some of these questions because we have people waiting, of course. Let's go ahead and start with Wait, where was I?
There's a lot of questions.
I know. Sorry about this. I'm going to go with this one, and I'll scroll back up to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Drop Osborne for Josh Gordon, Deshaun Jackson, or the Titans defense. If at all, I got the Rams D. Wait, why are you? Oh, because you're trying to. Why? No, get the Titans out of here. You don't need more than one defense. I don't care who it's playing, what the matchup is. You don't need more than one defense. You either draft a defense early to have a great defense throughout the entire season, or you're going to be streaming defenses. You don't drop anybody for a defense, like unless they're injured, unless they haven't done anything, unless you haven't been paying attention for the first 3 weeks of the season, and you still have, I don't know. Let's go with Cam Akers on your roster. That's why you would drop. That's the player you would drop to grab a defense. Meanwhile, Deshaun Jackson, he's appetizing, but it's too spotty. We see him have these spotty games from time to time. This is something where you need to pay attention to my Wednesday shows, and you need to check my articles over there on Player Profiler. I will mention certain matchups, and actually Britt does some DFS matchups as well, where she can probably pinpoint a Deshaun Jackson type game. But that's where you need to pay attention to it. We need to make sure that Deshaun Jackson was actually like ready to go and that he was going to get plays prior to us ever including him in a DFS article, but he's here now and he could be worth it, but not in a redraft league. Meanwhile, Josh Gordon's coming in. He's playing for the Chiefs. What do you say? What say you? Because this is going to be a topic here, and I got mixed emotions. I'm all over the place. I'm like a schoolboy who like ends up having two different options of two girls, like one who's super, super cool to me and she's still pretty and everything's great. And then one that's super hot who's out of my league who I know is going to dump me in a week after we go to the movies. And she's going to dump me at the movies probably as soon as we leave. It's like, hey, can I have a kiss? And it's like, nope, you don't get a kiss because I'm dumping you. And that's going to be the Josh Gordon like corollary throughout this entire thing. It's like, when do I play him? Like, when is Josh Gordon just going to dump me? And when is he going to treat me really, really nice? And he hasn't treated anybody really, really nice in a while, but he was playing with the Seahawks behind Metcalf, behind Lockett. Now all he's competing for with touches is Tyreek Hill, of course, and Travis Kelce. But at the wide receiver position is Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman, who was finally relevant after, Tyreek Hill was dealing with some stuff on the sidelines. I mean, Josh Gordon, what's up? Like, talk to me.
his past and everything that keeps on happening with him and just his age, to be quite frank right now. And he's not even active. He's on the practice squad. Like, how long is it going to take him to learn the system? How long is it going to take him to get acclimated? Then after, how long is it going to take he and Mahomes to build a relationship together? You know, I don't really want to touch it.
To like build a family and, you know, settle down and buy a house and then have kids. Like, yeah, it's all up in the air, right?
Yeah, I just think it's a trap.
Sorry. Oh, we're talking about John. No, sorry. I got it on a different page. Yeah, I got you. It is a trap. It's a trap 100%, but it could win you your league. It's a trap. It could win your league. This is what I was talking about with the roster bomb. So this is the actual definition of a roster bomb, where a team picks them up like they did. What was it, last year? I think it was last year, the year before that. And he played like 5 games, but you roster him forever just to get nothing out of him. Now, Patrick Mahomes passes who he wants to pass to. That's my concern. And this is where I'm torn. Like, deep in my heart, this is where I'm torn, because I think that Josh Gordon could end up still giving you value, although he's not in a high path. Like he's not going to end up destroying leagues anymore. He's 30 years old. Like, he's a year or two younger than Julio Jones, who we were talking about could have been retired if he stayed with Atlanta. I mean, he's not going to be there, but he also does not have any wear and tear outside of possibly his brain. But I mean, and I'm not even talking about the weed. I'm just talking about because, you know, like, dude has issues. But Josh Gordon still is an athlete who could perform at a very high end level in certain matchups. Well, when do you play him? When do you know when to play him? You don't. Like, he's going to be the Sammy Watkins. He's going to be 1-2 weeks in a season, in my opinion. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. And it's going to drive you nuts having him on your bench when he goes off and then putting him in your lineup when he puts up a goose egg or 1 point or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it could be worth it. It's like, what do you spend on him at the point? Like, because you know your league mates are going to make some dumb decisions. Like, you know somebody's going to throw 80% of FAAB on Josh Gordon. I mean, the same people that threw 80% FAAB on Freeman last year, right? So I'm actually not a Gordon. I'm fading him. I'll throw a buck on him just to see if it passes through waivers, but it's not going to, because you have some nuts in your league. But throw a buck on him. Just see what happens. Get the back eye off the end of your roster and throw a buck at him, because he could win your leagues, but it's very, very unlikely. Agreed? Disagreed?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We need to disagree more often. I'm going to start just coming up with really dumb takes, so it forces you to disagree.
I know, right?
All right. So we have Tanyan. Do I drop him for someone like Schultz, Knox, etc.? All right. So, hey, David, I don't know if you're still in the chat right now. I want you to stay tuned, because I actually have this exact situation coming up, but I don't want to hop from wide receivers over to tight ends and just pass it over, because as soon as we hit tight ends, everybody ends up leaving. So stick with us, David. We're going to make sure that we cover Tanyan and Schultz and Knox here very, very shortly. And he has the next question. Can I drop Hurts for like Carr?
Carr's been playing really, really well, and I still can't figure out if it's all a mirage or if he's actually doing really well. But for fantasy purposes, their defense isn't looking great. They've played 2 overtime games out of the 3 and just squeaked by in both of them. So he's going to have to throw and keep competitive to stay in these games. So I like Carr over Hurts.
Yeah. This is tough, because Hurts can win you a league, and we've seen it from time to time, but it's not good. Like, it's not great. It's just, it's like whatever. Like, yeah, he ends up winning you some weeks, and then ends up losing it. But like, if you're not getting that consistent output, it makes you nauseous. It makes you nervous, and you can't stream Hurts because he's too good to stream. Like Hurts. Like, could you ever find Hurts in your waivers?
Oh no, no. I think people were drafting Hurts like top 10.
Yeah, like there's no way you could find him on your waivers. Like, that's just ridiculous. If you could find him on your waivers, it'd be absolutely nuts. And so if you're willing to give up that player, which, by the way, I'm going to make a confession. Like, I actually held on to Lamar Jackson throughout the entire year. And by the time that he actually started producing, I was done. Like I all my leagues that I had Lamar Jackson in, I didn't have a chance. And he produced at the very end of the year. I think he actually finished with the most fantasy points for the quarterback position. So that's the dilemma that you have with Jalen Hurts, especially with the tail end schedule. But you still need to make it into the playoffs. And Derek Carr can get you in the playoffs. Derek Carr's been top of the position. They just haven't unleashed Derek Carr because they've had Josh Jacobs. Now they don't have Josh Jacobs. And now they have also a primary receiving back that they paid $12 million a year to. So that always helps the ceiling. I think that that's okay. I think it's okay.
It feels icky to say.
So tough. It makes you sick to the stomach, right?
I've tweeted out something this summer, and it was right when Best Ball and Underdog was getting going. And I said, every time I draft Derek Carr in Best Ball, I audibly say, ew. And I was like, but I shouldn't, because this is why, and da-da-da-da, and laid out a bunch of stats. And for fantasy purposes, even in the past, he's done really well. And this year, he's doing even better.
No, and all right, so I'm huge advocate of Derek Carr. I think it was a year early last year because Derek Carr had rookie wide receivers, just was not working out. But damn, like he is looking so good, and I think this is okay. But what I would do, all right, here's the deal, David. What I would do is I would trade. I would try and trade Hurts and get a back-end option. I don't care what I would get for Hurts because you're going to drop anyways. So you might be able to secure a guy like Damian Harris, probably not. Maybe like no, because James White's going to be injured too long. Maybe Chuba Hubbard. I would take a Chuba Hubbard for Hurts before you dropped him, right? Am I wrong?
No.
Right? Am I asking too little?
Well, it depends on who you have on your team and the need, I guess, depending on who you want to trade for. But like you said, Hubbard has that upside that is pretty much always going to be there, whereas Hurts could blow up one week and then really flop in another. And then it just drives you crazy again with the consistency issue.
Yeah, but Chuba Hubbard's such a good handcuff. All right, I'm taking the Chuba Hubbard on the side. If you can get a player like that where it's a handcuff for one of your guys, I would probably take it. It's better than dropping him, and I think you can still get value from Hurts. So no, I'm not dropping Hurts for Carr. I'm trading Hurts and picking up Carr. All right, we got one more from Chris, and then we're gonna hop on to the wide receivers, and then we'll finish off the questions and then hit the tight end. So Mark Ingram is killing me on my bench. That's because he's a roster clog. This is the type of player you don't want to roster. This is what we said in week, what was it, 1, 2, when you joined me? We said don't pick up Ingram because he is a roster clog. Like, this is a trick. It's a mirage. Texans aren't going to be winning that many games. I don't care if Tyrod Taylor is in the game or not. They didn't expect Mark Ingram to be the running back in week 1, and he's going to clog your rosters. So his other running backs are Kamara, Eckler, and Miles Sanders. Do I drop Ingram and take a flyer on Michael Carter? So Michael Carter, he's looked good in week 2, looked terrible in week 3. Michael Carter is somebody that we don't know what we're going to get out of him from week to week. However, if he has a blow-up week, this is where I like Michael Carter over Ingram. Nobody's going to trade for Mark Ingram. Somebody will trade for Michael Carter if he has 2 or 3 good weeks in a row and he catches balls. So we don't have to rely on a good Jets defense. I mean, a good Jets offensive line to have Michael Carter increase in value.
Yeah, I like the upside in Carter, especially how just dismal the rest of their running back room looks. I think Carter could have a couple breakout games, like you said, and then, he would still be doing more on your bench than Ingram would be.
All right, so let's go ahead and hop back to the show sheet. I see you, Sugar Ray Robinson Jr., by the way, who's the top pickup this week. Obviously, we have different positions, so we can go through them. Is there one that strikes your fancy more than any other waiver wire pickup this week?
I hate to keep harping on Chuba Hubbard, but I think his upside is just so huge. And I really do think that McCaffrey is going to get hurt again. I'm really wary of soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, no, they're tough. They're very tough. Mine is going to be Emmanuel Sanders since we're hopping to the wide receiver position.
Good segue.
It's perfect, right? It's perfect. Meanwhile, Emmanuel Sanders is one of those trophy winners. Like, he's somebody that could actually bring you home a trophy. And I'm a big Gabriel Davis fan. However, it's looking to me like Emmanuel Sanders is the dude. And if you have a chance to pick up Emmanuel Sanders, you can take that trophy home and you can hoist it high above your head, like super high above your head, unless you have a trophy smack trophy, because then you're going to be limited with how much space is above your head because those trophies are sick. All right. Have you guys ever seen Shark Tank, right? Like, have you seen Shark Tank? Haven't you, Britt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the one with trophy smack?
I didn't. That's
Okay.
the
So
bar
trophy
life.
smack. I know. It's tough, right? It's tough. You need to go check it out. Trophy Smack went in there, right? And they actually, got a 5 shark deal for their company, which every shark invested in. The main one was Mark Cuban, of course, and they've blown up ever since. It's been insane. Like, the company's just like literally exploding in front of you. But they have like the coolest trophies. Like, they have these trophies that are like 10 feet tall. They have these trophies that are the title belts, and they weigh like 100 million pounds. And like, you could not expect your grandma to pick up the trophy unless you're Ian Hartitz, whose grandma actually did pick up the title belt somehow. If they're super heavy, I got to see them at Canton. They were insane. They were so sick. But no, they have the coolest stuff over there. They have the toilet bowl losers, which is like a trophy that goes around your neck that you have to wear at draft day, and it's actually a toilet seat, but it's like engraved with your name on it and stuff. So you can buy the loser something to wear at the draft the next year. It's insane, guys. Go check it out. TrophySmack.com. TrophySmack.com. Use promo code CIRCLE when you go to purchase a trophy or a belt. When you do that and you enter in promo code CIRCLE, you actually get a free championship ring. You get a free championship ring, and it's valued at $60. So go check out TrophySmack.com. Use promo code CIRCLE when you go to checkout. Make sure the ring and the trophy or the belt, it could be a belt or a trophy, are in the cart, and you get a free ring valued at $60. It's insane. Meanwhile, they have second place or not first, like little, like, what do they call it? Ribbons, right?
Like the participation ribbons, right?
Yeah, they have a mirror where if you hold it up, it says like, I'm a loser in fantasy football. So in the end, somebody a mirror. That's all they see.
Tragic.
It's amazing. Go check it out, guys. TrophySmack.com. Use promo code CIRCLE when purchasing a trophy or a belt, and you actually get a free $60 ring. So let's go ahead and hop on to these wide receivers with Emmanuel Sanders, because like I was saying, I mean, he's somebody that could absolutely win you a league. As for like unrealized air yards, he's 18th in the NFL with 153. For completed air yards, he's 9th, which is absolutely nuts. I mean, this guy is like, how Curtis Samuel had a ton of air yards back in 2019, and everybody's like, oh, Curtis Samuel is going to be so amazing as a deep threat. He's not a deep threat. Emmanuel Sanders is a deep threat. He knows how to track the ball, and he showed it this past week. Meanwhile, Josh Allen was actually accurate. So, I mean, moving forward, I'm loving Emmanuel Sanders. Is Emmanuel Sanders anywhere close to your radar?
Yeah, I think so. He's still a wide receiver 3 in the offense behind Diggs and Beasley, but his air yards that you talked about do make up for those lack of targets, because he does catch the ball when it's thrown his way. Like, he doesn't drop them.
No, he's great. He's great. I mean, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for like 32 years. Like, he is somebody that knows how to track a ball. And we've seen it, we've seen different wide receivers struggle with this throughout the years, but Emmanuel Sanders is not one of them. What percentage of FAAB would you throw at Emmanuel Sanders?
I'm still really stingy. I would probably do 10% of my FAAB if you have enough.
That's not bad. I mean, that's not terrible. Like, Emmanuel Sanders is a league winner as a flex option. He's not going to be a starting wide receiver any week. You still have to figure out when you're going to play him, which is pretty much going to be shootout type games. I can understand that. I can get on board with it. I'll probably go a little bit higher than you, but not much. I'm going to say 12% if you need a wide receiver or if you need a flex. If you don't, I might leave him on the waivers. I mean, he's a great option. He offers great upside. But if you're stacked at wide receiver and you don't need a flex option, you don't need a wide receiver, you went wide receiver heavy, you went 0 RB in your drafts, I'm going to leave him on the waivers and wait for a running back to get injured and come to you and fall to you where like a Chuba Hubbard type player or Peyton Barber type player can offer the value, right?
Yep, I think so too.
I feel like that was a trend this year with 0 RB, which, we've heard people preach about for years and years and years, but I just felt like it came through stronger this year more than any other. So let's go ahead and hop on to our next one. Let's go to Darnell Mooney. All right. I don't know. Are we in the same leagues? You said that he's rostered 55% of leagues. I'm a little bit lower than that.
Yeah, I looked it up.
No, I believe you. I'm literally just kidding. I'm just being a smart ass. So this week, I feel like he could be a breakout week. Here's Detroit, right? In Detroit, they're terrible at rushing the passer. They're terrible at defending the deep ball. They had one of the highest explosive play rates of any team in the NFL. Part of this past week, I haven't seen it yet this week, but I'm sure it's still up there. You know, Darnell Mooney gets beyond the defense. And whether it's Andy Dalton, whether it's Justin Fields, whether it's, I don't even know who else they have on the roster. I am sitting there thinking that Darnell Mooney should finally have his breakout week up against Detroit. Is Darnell Mooney the way to go this week, or are you going to fade him until you see some opportunity?
I'm going to have to fade him. It's not a knock on him. It's a knock on Chicago's coach and how their offense has been. I don't know if you saw the chart where all Justin Fields passes were thrown. They're thrown out like 10 yards, if that.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's awful. And it's nothing to do with these players or their abilities, but I just don't have any faith in the coaching staff there in Chicago. So I need to see a little bit more and see if they're going to change their scheme and shake some things up before I roster any Chicago players really outside of David Montgomery and Allen Robinson. But I won't start Allen Robinson until I see them clean up the pass game.
It's so funny. I'm sitting there with like Allen Robinson and a few other players, and I'm like, wait, what's happening right now? What is going on? Like, this is such a weird year. We thought Allen Robinson was quarterback proof. Turns out that he's not. Andy Dalton and Justin Fields are where he draws the line.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So who else do we have on here? We have Nick Westbrook. Get the fuck out. I don't understand. Like, this is the poor man's version of Corey Davis. They're literally the exact same size, almost the exact same weight. Yeah, he got targeted. He played 78% of the snaps, I believe. I think that was the right number. But come on. Like, really? Like,
and still,
really?
It's like we talked about earlier. Tennessee's such a run-heavy offense. Like, Tannehill's not going to have to throw the ball. He's not going to get the targets. Just stop trying to make it a thing.
Corey Davis produced in college. He had draft capital. Nick Westbrook, whatever the hell his last name is, does not. And why he's being brought up as a waiver wire pickup because he got a touchdown? Come on. He's going to be the wide receiver 4 in this offense. He will be. Like, it's going to be a Kendrick Bourne, right? And what's the speed guy? I'm drawing a blank right now. We are talking about a player that has zero value moving forward as a 2020 late round or undrafted pick. Like, this is just dumb. Like, I haven't even done the research on him because I don't need to do the research on him. I just look at his metrics and I'm like, what are you people talking about? This is just ridiculous. Nick Westbrook should never be a waiver wire target. I don't even want to spend any more time on him unless you have anything to add.
Nope. Let's move on.
This is great. All right. So you have a couple over here as well. Let's go ahead and have you address this.
Yeah. So AJ Green and Christian Kirk both have come up. And it's so funny. Their rostership, it's identical. It's identical.
Sorry,
that's why I had to do them together.
For the people that are listening to the podcast, you're saying that they're both identically rostered in an equal amount of ESPN leagues at 30.8%. That's insane.
Yep. Identical. So, which makes it all the more difficult to figure out which one to roster. I thought that AJ Green was dust. He has showed me that he is not. Christian Kirk's getting the targets, getting the work, but they do have a little bit of a difficult upcoming schedule. Next week they play against the Rams in LA. Next week they play San Francisco, but that's 2 back-to-back division rivals. Then they go to Cleveland to play the Browns, whose defense is looking really salty. And then they have Houston. So you're good there. But I mean, they just got a pretty tough schedule coming forward. And I don't know if I want to deal with that combined with the fact of we don't know which receiver is going to get the ball in this offense.
No, I completely agree with you. It's literally like a trash shoot. So, or a dumpster fire or whatever you want. No, it's not a dumpster fire. It's actually just a fireworks show. We just don't know what fireworks are taking off first.
Right.
I agree with you. It's going to be interesting. mean, we have some advantageous matchups in the slot for them, but it's going to be tough throughout the year, and we just never know which one's going to happen. So let's go ahead and move on from these guys. Oh, wait, do you want to talk about your roster or what you put on them for FAAB, or if you would put FAAB?
If you're really desperate and just really need some wide receivers, I would put about 10%, 8 to 10%, but I just don't think that they're going to be consistent week to week to make it worth it.
Yeah, I'm out on that one, but it's something that's where people are debating it right now. And yeah, I'm out on that. So let's go ahead and answer a few of these questions. We're going to run through them because we're running way behind. I actually have another show starting up in 2 minutes that I already told them I'm late for. Hopefully they can start it up since we're on the same StreamYard. All right, so we have Kirk Cousins, traded Waller for Chubb, PPR. Good or bad deal? Dude, if you're getting Chubb, I don't know how that could be a bad deal.
I'm just worried about Chubb's usage because they seem to ride the hot hand in Cleveland, and last week it was Kareem Hunt. I mean, Chubb still got 84 yards, but he didn't find the end zone at all. And Waller is the target guy I almost said Oakland, in Vegas. I think I love them both, but I think you're on the wrong side of the deal.
So just break it down, not too long. I feel like Chubb, like with the longer season, we're going to see a lot more committee approaches where they will ride the hot hand. When it comes to like the Jonathan Taylors of the world, the Nick Chubbs of the world, the Antonio Gibsons of the world, we're going to see them get a lot more usage towards the tail end or in critical type game situations moving forward. And guess what? The Browns really haven't had too many of them. So we haven't seen that elite usage. I think that we're going to see that later on in the season. All right, Kirk Cousins, David Carr. Are we going Carr on this one or are we going Cousins? It's so close to me. I love both. And I've had both for many, many years. Many years, for a few years. I think I'm going to go Carr on this one. What are you feeling?
I've got
to waiver wire pickups, right? Waiver wire pickups.
For a pickup, I don't know. I think I would go Cousins because I still kind of think that maybe Carr is a little bit of a sham, possibly. And maybe when Jacobs comes back.
You get out! He's my top 10.
I know.
Oh my God.
But also,
I'm going to throw you my article that I wrote for Dynasty Nerds.
I talked about those matchups, and it's some of these matchups where the defense hasn't kept them in it. His arm has had to throw to keep them in it, and I don't see as many of those happening down the line.
Holy shit, we got a lot of questions.
Yeah, we do.
I just scrolled down. All right, so let's try and hammer these out. Thoughts on waiver wire claim? I have the second one. I'm going to see owner. So this is one of the ones where it's not FAAB. It's where you have the second claim because you haven't made a claim prior to that or because you have a bad record. Running backs are Hunt, Davis, Zach Moss, Tyson Williams, should I go after Hubbard or save my it's priority one. This is where I'd actually I think you have to go after Hubbard.
Yeah,
Hubbard isn't a good matchup. They're going to run the ball up against Dallas. Dallas, I know you love Dallas. I know that's your team. But they've been less stout up front. Plus, they're kind of volatile when it comes to defending the pass catching backs. Hubbard's going to get chances in the run game, in the pass game. Even if it's for 1 week, you're great. But now you have your handcuff for the rest of the season. And I'm not a big fan of rostering handcuffs as a whole. But for these leagues where it's like home type leagues, I think you have to do Hubbard.
Yeah, and Williams really hasn't shown much. Mike Davis hasn't really shown much. I think Hubbard has more upside than either of those guys.
I agree. I dropped Tyson Williams for him.
Yeah.
Davis is right there with it. All right, so more Claypool or Beasley, who to roster leaving? He's leaving Beasley.
Okay.
Half point PPR. Claypool's so tough with Ben Roethlisberger's arm, and Beasley's been a monster.
Yeah, Beasley. He's Josh Allen's little security blanket.
The only way that Claypool increases value for me right now is if Dwayne Haskins takes over at quarterback, which I don't think is going to happen because I think they're going to Mason Rudolph first. It could happen towards the tail end of the season, but I think you get Claypool back off of waivers at a certain point, unless somebody's in love with Claypool. But I would actually, so real quick, I would try and trade Claypool in upgrade. So I would use Claypool and somebody else to upgrade at one of your positions. So that way you make room on your roster and you can actually, bring in another guy. Obviously, you're going to need somebody that's going to need to upgrade at a position. But I would try and upgrade at a position prior to just dropping them. I don't think either one of those three players are droppable. All right. Do you guys think the way Cordell Patterson is playing right now for the Falcons, do you think he's the RB to own in Atlanta over Mike Davis? Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I think Mike Davis is going to phase out of the offense over time. I think Marlon Mack makes his way over there. Fingers crossed. All right. I know it's early in the week for this question, but I came back Wednesday for a question. Co-host got on my nerves, to be honest. Really, Hunter? Hunter, really? Why did we get on your nerves? I can't with you, Hunter. I just can't. I love you, but I can't. All right. Is Heinz or Moss worth rostering in a 10-man league? I'm not in many 10-man leagues, to be honest. I don't think so. I don't see how they offer that much value or that much upside. Like, I'm not into it. How are you into it, Britt? Are you into Heinz or Moss?
It depends on how big your bench is. I'm in a 10-man league, but our bench is really deep. So we do have the option of drafting to make up, but if your bench is small, I don't think so. I think there's probably better options out there.
Okay. Yeah, that's tough. I think there are better options. I think it's pretty consistent. All right. Oh, man. I need wide receiver and RB. I want to trade Hurts. What can I get for them? Ooh, this is a good question. All right, so we talked about it earlier, and I think that a handcuff is safe for Hurts if it's a single quarterback league. Single quarterback league, like, I would never trade for a quarterback. So you have to take what you can get when you can get them. And if there's a good option to move down for, I think that grabbing a backup running back or handcuff, something along the lines of that, yeah, I'd grab that. I think David actually kind of asked this question earlier. He put in a waiver for Hubbard. He has CMC. Yeah, I think this is the same type of question. So Hunter Hall asks, so you got me thinking, I've got Eckler, Gordon, Jacobs. Should I pick up Barber or Mack? Drop Jared Cook, Watkins, or Osborne? God, I told you guys to drop Osborne last week. This was not the week to roster Osborne. Osborne was not going to end up performing at a high end level, and we saw it coming. Like, oh man, this is tough. Where are you seeing this one, Britt?
I mean, I think if you have Jacobs, you could definitely pick up Barber, and drop Sammy Watkins. Rashad Bateman should be coming back. A couple other of the Ravens pass catchers are coming back. I mean, grab your handcuff because we don't know how healthy Jacobs is going to be for the rest of the year.
I'm just sitting here looking at the future comments, and it's very, very entertaining. Guys, I got another show I'm supposed to be on 6 minutes ago, and y'all are keeping me busy. So I'm going to finish this off. If you guys want to get any more questions, please come on the show tomorrow night. We're going to be live it's at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We have all sorts of fun things going on over there. It's a shit show. And I know was it Hunter that we're about to answer the question for, or that we're answering the question for, did not like it. But I promise you, it's a blast. I'll make sure that they're a little bit less annoying next week, and I'll make sure to pass on that message too. Love you, Hunter. Thank you for coming in the chat. For me, I'm thinking that I would pick up Mack with that deep roster that you have and drop Evans. I don't think Evans, like with McNichols, right? Like, McNichols is just taking over all the conversation. Everybody's forgetting about Evans. Evans should be dropped and should be rostered in very few leagues. Meanwhile, Tyrell Williams on IR, he still has some upside, maybe some trade value, possibly, probably not. But I'd probably drop Evans. Osborne is somebody that you want to roster now that you made it through the rough week. But let's go ahead and hop on, Britt, to the tight ends.
Yep.
Who's your top tight end out of the ones that I listed? And I'm going to let you start it out.
Well, I love Dalton Schultz, and not just because I'm a Cowboys fan.
Bullshit.
It's not just because. I'm not just because.
I'm just kidding.
But he's only rostered in 3.4% of ESPN leagues.
Crazy, right?
It's so nutty. Michael Gallup's still out. He had 6 catches on 7 targets last night. He found the end zone twice. He's currently the tight end 5 on the year. Then they've got Carolina, the Giants, and New England. I mean, and we don't know if Gallup's going to be back for any of those games.
Oh, I'm so sorry, by the way. I don't mean to interrupt in everything that we're talking about. We're going to get back to the tight end, but I'm saying he's got Evans and Tyrell Williams on the IR, and I guess they have IR spots because ESPN has those. So I was thinking Dynasty. I apologize. So we have to pick if he should drop Jared Cook, Watkins, or Osborne. You said Watkins. I'm on board with that. I would do it for Mack. I wouldn't do it for Barber, I don't think. It's close, but I wouldn't do it for Barber. I would do it for Mack. As for your Dalton Schultz thing, I agree. Like, your Dalton Schultz, like, dude, he's sexy. He is so sexy. He's tight end 5 on the year. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? After a massive performance in week 3, and a good performance in week 1, we're seeing the Cowboys offense actually, like, they're good. They're very good, and they don't even name Michael Gallup to do so. It's interesting to see what the future of the Cowboys offense is going to be, but Dalton Schultz needs to be rostered. I don't understand why he's not. It's blowing my mind. Dalton Schultz was one of my favorite tight ends in the entire year prior to the season starting, and now it's coming to fruition. Jesus, he's a force to be reckoned with. He needs to be rostered. He's going to give you some down weeks, but at the same time, his floor is still going to be 2 receptions for 20 yards in most weeks. So you're not going to get killed if you're trying to stream tight ends. I love your Dalton Schultz in your Cowboys offense. My favorite one, we're going to go back to week 3 where we talked about Max Williams. And I shouldn't even repeat this, but I feel like I need to because people probably weren't listening. He's only rostered in 7.6% of ESPN leagues. Dude, he broke out big time when it came to week 2. Week 3, sure. Yeah, he had a little bit of regression. But this is something as to where he's still getting utilized. And he still has a great matchup against the Rams. I talked about how the Rams, they get eaten up inside, right? Jalen Ramsey, if you guys go to playerprofiler.com, you guys can see all my articles for Player Profiler. Jalen Ramsey plays like a shortstop, when it's the first at bat, where he plays deep. He doesn't play short, he plays deep, and he waits for the receivers to come to him. And they allow these receivers, tight ends and slot receivers, to get 5, 6, 7 yards. Like, on first and second down, it doesn't make much sense to me. But then they end up playing these pressure situations, and it ends up working out. I've really figured out the whole algorithm that the Rams actually try to pursue. But Max Williams is going to eat again this week. Meanwhile, it's San Francisco, which is a little bit tougher. Cleveland, a little bit tougher. But, I mean, Max Williams, for a streaming option at tight end, give him all to me. I want all of Max Williams. This dude is going to be a stud in this league. It's taken him a little bit to break out. But, hell, this tight end is going to be good. Give me him, along with Dawson Knox, who we could talk about next. Do you want to talk about Max Williams first?
I think that everything you said is correct. The tight end is such a crapshoot position, honestly. If you don't have one of those top 3 elites, that there's such a disparity in points that he has that upside potential to be a top tight end week to week. So
love that. Absolutely love it. 100% on board. All right, so let's go ahead to Dawson Knox, who is getting an opportunity. What did I write? He has 33% of his red zone targets already from last season. That's crazy.
Yep. And he's only rostered. Yeah, only rostered at 6.3%. He's in a high-powered offense with Buffalo. I mean, you want any piece of that offense that you can get, obviously, based on our waiver priority people this week. But he's shown that he's worth it. And again, if you're getting red zone looks as a tight end, they're a tight end that you want.
That's essentially the key to the tight end position. And Dawson Knox has an advantageous schedule coming up. I mean, Dawson Knox could end up getting a ton of touchdowns moving forward. I love Dawson Knox. As for everything else, Britt, do you have anything to add?
Oh, no.
Is there a question that you saw that we have to answer We got a ton of them. Like we literally have like 500 questions lined up, and I'd love to answer all the questions, but I'm literally, I'm 13 minutes late for a show.
We did say that we would answer David's. That I have Tunyon. Do I drop him for someone like Schultz, Knox, etc.?
Oh, that's right.
So going back to that, I don't think Tunyon's getting the looks that he was, and I think he was pretty touchdown dependent last season. And if he's not getting those looks this year, and these other guys are, like, yeah, tight end's hard. You got to go for the guys who are getting the end zone looks.
Which one would you take, Schultz, Dalton, or Tunyon?
Well, I'm gonna say Schultz.
Of course, you would.
I'm gonna say Schultz, but yeah, any of them are Schultz or Knox are both good options, I think, over Tunyon.
I'm on board with her. I am. I think that Schultz is the right answer over there. And that's going to end the episode for us. Britt, where can we find you? What do you do? Why are you qualified to be answering these waiver wire questions? Because I think you're completely qualified.
I've been playing fantasy for a really, really long time. I also write for Fighting Chance Fantasy. I'm on Twitter at Britt_Flynn. Whatever. Too much going on in my brain. And then you can find me on Sunday mornings with Kevin Tompkins and Gary Haddow doing the calm before the storm, answering your waiver questions.
Love that. Absolutely love it. Make sure you guys go check us all out over there at fantasyintervention.com. Once again, that's fantasyintervention.com. You guys can find all of our content at join_our_circle over there on Twitter. Big shout out to Fantasy Football Discussion. You guys kill it as always. Make sure you all go buy a trophy from trophysmack.com. Use promo code CIRCLE when doing so. You get a free $60 ring. Make sure it's in your cart. You guys can either use the belt or the trophy, and you get a free $6 ring. Plus, they have way cooler like loser prices than they do winner prizes. But yeah, go check all that out. trophysmack.com. Y'all can go find me at ff_intervention. Player profiler. We're going to be debuting a few things for I don't even know. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life.